workshop, and then you shadow the current crime scene investigators, evidence technicians for a while in order to get a good foothold. And then after that, you are released on your own in order to start processing scenes.
So is there a television program that's very popular called CSI?
There is, yes, sir.
Does that stand for Crime Scene Investigation?
It does.
How do your duties differ from those of your TV counterparts?
Massively so. They dramatize everything on TV, as you all know, and realistically, it takes forever to process a scene. It's not just within a 10-15 minute window. It takes a long time.
And do you do the testing yourself?
I do not do the testing myself. I just collect and preserve the evidence, and it's sent out for testing.
So in the TV show, I think sometimes, the one time I've watched it, the crime scene investigators actually solve the crime and interview witnesses and do things like that?
I do not interview any witnesses. I don't do anything on the forefront. All of my job is related back on the actual pieces
Much
we possibly can. And once we figure out how we think it happened, we look for things out of the ordinary. And those things that stick out to us, those are marked as evidence, and we do try to collect those.
I'll give you an example just to give the jury an idea that you can't collect everything. If you were working, let's say, a home invasion robbery where the victims indicate they were robbed in their home, would you go and collect their toothbrush or things from their medicine cabinet as potentially forensically relevant?
No, sir. If it's something that looks like it belongs there, and we can say with almost absolute certainty that it belongs there, we do not collect it.
When you're talking about processing a scene in Jacksonville Beach on a street, like in this particular case, are you able to collect Sanctuary Boulevard and take it back to the police station?
As much as we would like to preserve it in its entirety, we cannot do that.
Explain to the jury why photography is so important for what you do.
Well, the old saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words, it's 100% true when it comes to photography. It preserves the scene as it is. I can sit here all day long and describe those scenes to you, but when you look at a picture, that tells you the whole story right there.
And in this particular case, you were the, lead evidence technician on February 16th of 2022?
That is correct.
You processed the murder scene of Jared Bridegan?
I did, yes, sir.
Okay. And then are you working with your fellow detectives to try to determine what and how to collect things?
Yes, sir.
The jury already knows that this was a very dark scene. Did you take a video, use a video camera, I guess? It's not like a camcorder, right?
It's not a camcorder. It's our basic Nikon camera. It does have a video setting on there, and I use that.
We used to use video cameras. Okay. So the first thing we're going to show is what's been entered into evidence, is State's Exhibit 3. You should be able to see it on your screen. The jury knows how dark it is. The light that we see before we actually play the video, is that going to be flashlights that you or your fellow officers are holding?
That is correct. That's me, the flashlights to for the two officers next to me that were walking the scene with me.
And why do a video in addition to photographs?
Video also shows you a first-person view of the incident. I can show you a bunch of pictures, and as great as it is, seeing video live, it kind of plays it more better for everybody to fully understand what we're looking at.
Okay, we're going to play State.
Before we get into the testimony, pay close attention to what this witness actually does, and, just as importantly, what he does not do. Officer Shane Garman is not here claiming that he personally solved this murder. His role is much more specific. He processes crime scenes, documents physical evidence, preserves potential DNA, photographs the scene, and collects items that may later become critical pieces of the investigation. And in this case, that distinction matters. The jury is about to hear how investigators approached a dark roadway murder scene, how they documented a vehicle, a tire, possible blood evidence, a projectile, and even searched for a possible tracking device. Some of these details may sound routine at first, but courtroom evidence is often built piece by piece. A single photograph may establish context. A carefully collected swab may later connect a person to an object. And a tiny piece of physical evidence can potentially become far more important once laboratory testing and other evidence are considered. But there is another important question hanging over this testimony. How carefully was everything collected and preserved? Because when DNA or other forensic evidence becomes part of a murder prosecution, the reliability of the collection process can become extremely important. So listen closely as the officer explains his training, his procedure, and exactly what he found at this scene. The testimony is about to get much more specific, and some of the evidence described here could become crucial to the bigger picture of the case.
You may proceed.
And please the court. Please introduce yourself to the jury.
My name is Shane Garman. I'm a police officer with the Jacksonville Beach Police Department.
How long have you been so employed?
I've been employed with them for 8.5 years.
Give the jury an idea of your experience and background that allows you to be a police officer in Jacksonville Beach, Florida.
Well, first, I was a police officer in the state of West Virginia for 7 years. And in Jacksonville Beach, I've been there for 8.5 years. I'm a patrol officer, a field training officer, defense tactics instructor, a crime scene investigator, as well as a taser instructor, drone pilot.
So I'm going to spend most of your time talking about your crime scene investigator. Is that also known as an evidence technician?
Yes, sir.
Explain to the jury what training you have that allows you to perform those functions.
So in order to become an evidence technician, you have to first express an interest in the evidence technician field. Then you attend a crime scene processing workshop, a digital photography workshop. Then you shadow the current crime scene investigators, evidence technicians for a while in order to get a good foothold. And then after that, you are released on your own in order to start processing scenes.
So is there a television program that's very popular called CSI?
There is, yes, sir.
Does that stand for Crime Scene Investigation?
It does.
How do your duties differ from those of your TV counterparts?
Massively so. They dramatize everything on TV, as you all know, and realistically, it takes forever to process a scene. It's not just within a 10-15 minute window. It takes a long time.
And do you do the testing yourself?
I do not do the testing myself. I just collect and preserve the evidence, and it's sent out for testing.
So in the TV show, so I think sometimes, the one time I've watched it, the crime scene investigators actually solve the crime and interview witnesses and do things like that?
I do not interview any witnesses. I don't do anything on the forefront. All of my job is related back on the actual pieces of physical evidence.
So
This clarification is important because it tells the jury exactly what kind of testimony they are hearing. Officer Garman is describing the collection and preservation side of the investigation, not a conclusion about who committed the murder. He tells the jury that his job is centered on physical evidence and that testing is sent elsewhere. That means the significance of what he collects may depend on later forensic analysis and how that evidence fits with the rest of the case. Notice the method he describes as well. Investigators first secure the scene, work with detectives, consider how the incident may have happened, and then look for things that appear out of the ordinary. That is why context matters so much in forensic evidence. Investigators aren't simply grabbing every object they see. They are making decisions about what may have evidentiary value. And here's the question for the jury, and for everyone watching. When investigators decide what is out of the ordinary, how much weight should we place on those judgment calls? Keep that question in mind, because the testimony is about to move from general procedure to the actual murder scene.
So when you get to a particular scene, just generally speaking, has the scene already been evaluated by detectives and first responders as to what potentially you should collect?
Yes.
Try as best you can to explain to the jury how you go about conceptualizing the processing of a scene and what you target as potentially probative forensic evidence.
So once the scene is secured, we walk through with the detectives. We try to imagine how this occurred. We try our best not to, of course, disturb any evidence. We preserve as much as we possibly can. And once we figure out how we think it happened, we look for things out of the ordinary. And those things that stick out to us, those are marked as evidence, and we do try to collect those.
I'll give you an example just to give the jury an idea that you can't collect everything. If you were working, let's say, a home invasion robbery where the victims indicate they were robbed in their home, would you go and collect their toothbrush or things from their medicine cabinet as potentially forensically relevant?
No, sir. If it's something that looks like it belongs there, and we can say with almost absolute certainty that it belongs there, we do not collect it.
When you're talking about processing a scene in Jacksonville Beach on a street, like in this particular case, are you able to collect Sanctuary Boulevard and take it back to the police station?
As much as we would like to preserve it in its entirety, we cannot do that.
Explain to the jury why photography is so important for what you do.
Well, the old saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words, it's 100% true when it comes to photography. It preserves the scene as it is. I can sit here all day long and describe those scenes to you, but when you look at a picture, that tells you the whole story right there.
And in this
Now the
particular
testimony is moving into the actual case, and this is where the evidence becomes much more concrete. Officer Garman confirms that he was the lead evidence technician on February 16, 2022, and that he processed the murder scene involving Jerry Bride. One of the biggest themes here is documentation. The roadway itself obviously cannot be boxed up and carried into a courtroom. Investigators have to preserve what they can through photographs, video, measurements, and physical evidence. That is why the officer emphasizes that photographs preserve the scene as it existed. The jury isn't simply being asked to imagine what the location looked like. The prosecution is creating a visual record of that environment. And then comes another important detail. The scene was extremely dark. That means the video and photographs weren't necessarily captured under ideal conditions. The officer explains that flashlights were being used as they moved through the area. So as these exhibits are shown, don't just look at the individual objects. Think about where they were located, what was around them, and how those pieces may fit together. In a case involving physical evidence, location can be just as important as the object itself.
And in this particular case, you were the, lead evidence technician on February 16th of 2022?
That is correct.
You processed the murder scene of Jerry Bride again?
I did, yes, sir.
Okay. And then are you working with your fellow detectives to try to determine what and how to collect things?
Yes, sir.
The jury already knows that this was a very dark scene. Did you take a video, use a video camera, I guess? It's not like a camcorder, right?
It's not a camcorder. It's our basic Nikon camera. It does have a video setting on there, and I use that.
We used to use video cameras. Okay. So the first thing we're going to show is what's been entered into evidence as State's Exhibit 3. You should be able to see it on your screen. The jury knows how dark it is. The light that we see before we actually play the video, is that going to be flashlights that you or your fellow officers are holding?
That is correct. That's me, the flashlights to for the two officers next to me that were walking the scene with me.
And why do a video in addition to photographs?
Video also shows you a first-person view of the incident. I can show you a bunch of pictures, and as great as it is, seeing video live, it kind of plays it more better for everybody to fully understand what we're looking at.
Okay, we're going to play State's Exhibit 3. If there's something that you need to jump in and explain, feel free to do so.
Sir.
Officer Jarman, I guess the focus is
Yes, sir.
user error.
It was, yes, sir.
As we look out there, is that going towards Butler Boulevard?
It's going towards Sanctuary Parkway, which leads on to JTB.
Is that a detective's car?
Yes, sir.
Now, at this point, when you get back to where you started.
Yes, sir.
That's enough.
At this
We've
point,
seen
the courtroom is essentially reconstructing the scene visually. The video has given the jury an overall orientation, and now the photographs are being introduced to establish specific locations and pieces of evidence. This may feel repetitive, but there is a reason the attorneys are carefully identifying each exhibit. The jury needs to know what each photograph depicts and where it fits within the larger scene. We hear references to the northbound and southbound lanes, the victim's vehicle, a spent projectile, a tire, an open driver's door, the back seat, a child car seat, apparent blood, and an apparent bullet strike. Those aren't conclusions about what happened by themselves. They are descriptions of what investigators documented. And that distinction matters. A photograph can show what was there, but determining what that evidence means can require additional testimony and testing. The real question now becomes, what can these individual pieces tell investigators when they are analyzed together? Because the testimony is about to focus on physical evidence that may be capable of producing forensic information, not just photographs.
And since we've seen the video, we're going to kind of race through these photographs just so the jury has an orientation and the record is clear as to what's been introduced. But we looked at State's Exhibit number 4 here. Is that going to be from the northbound lane photographed onto the southbound lane with the victim's vehicle?
Yes, sir.
State's Exhibit 5 is going to be on that northbound lane, but further south towards JTB.
Yes, sir.
State's Exhibit 6, you're on the southbound lane looking at the vehicle.
Yes, sir.
State's Exhibit 7, you're on the southbound lane looking at the vehicle from behind.
Yes, sir.
And then we have placard number 9. Is that going to be a spent projectile?
Yes,
State's Exhibit 30, is that a close-up of that projectile?
it is.
State's Exhibit 31, is this another view looking southbound on Sanctuary?
It is.
State's Exhibit 32, is this going to be evidence placard 5, which is the tire?
It is.
And then a close-up of State's 33 of that tire?
It is.
State's 34 is going to be the victim's vehicle with the driver's door open?
Yes.
State's 35 is a view of the victim's vehicle of the back seat
It is.
and the car seat.
Yes.
State's Exhibit 36 is inside the victim's vehicle. And do we see 2 particular pieces of evidence? Actually 3. One is a Frosty cup from Wendy's, and then apparent blood and an apparent bullet strike.
Yes.
State's Exhibit 37 are close-ups of those inside the victim's vehicle.
Yes.
State's Exhibit 38, do we also see blood droplets in the driver's side door of the victim's vehicle?
Yes.
State's 39 is going to be the passenger vehicle that apparently was struck by a bullet.
Yes.
State's Exhibit 56, is this the tire that you recovered from the scene?
It is.
State's Exhibit 57, another photograph of that tire.
Yes.
So we have a couple things to show you. May I approach the witness, Your Honor? The first, and I guess most interesting, is going to be State's Exhibit 90. May the witness step down.
Sure.
He can.
Officer, if you would, there's a microphone there, this clip to that.
We can share it too, Your Honor.
I can get it off.
I'm very familiar with the microphone.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's okay.
I got it. I enjoyed that wrestling. So I want to show the jury, this is State's Exhibit 90. Yeah, if you could stay there, I'll stay here.
Officer, go ahead and clip it on your, give him a moment.
Can you hear me? It's good? Good. We're good?
Sounds good.
All right.
Now
Yes,
clip it on your belt. There you go.
You've done it your whole life. Good job. All right, so State's Exhibit 90, is this the tire that you recovered from the scene?
Yes, sir.
This is one of the most important procedural portions of the testimony because the focus has now shifted from documenting evidence to preserving potential DNA evidence. The officer explains that the tire was recovered from the scene, transported to the station, and processed the following day. He also describes multiple precautions designed to reduce the possibility of cross-contamination. Listen to the level of detail: gloves, sterilized water, and changing gloves between swabs. He says he used 2 pairs of gloves between each swab and went through nearly half a box of gloves processing the tire. Whether the resulting DNA evidence ultimately proves anything is a separate question. But the testimony is clearly establishing how the sample was collected. The officer also explains that he targeted areas of the tire that appeared unusual for a dirty tire. That is significant because investigators weren't randomly swabbing every square inch. They were looking for areas that might have been touched or otherwise stood out. And now we have a key question. What did those swabs eventually reveal? The answer to that would require laboratory analysis, but this testimony establishes the foundation for why the samples were collected in the first place.
Yes, sir.
Explain to the jury how you went about processing this tire.
So once it was recovered at the scene, it was transported to the station by Officer Choate, Property Officer Choate. The next day I came in, unpackaged it, unsealed it, and I took photographs of the front side here. And when it came to processing the tire for possible DNA evidence, per our policy, I wore gloves as well as using sterilized water. And to make sure there's no further cross-contamination, we also go an extra step. We put on 2 pairs of gloves between each and every swab. So I went through almost half a box of gloves just to process this tire.
And when you say process it to look for DNA, we see in State's Exhibit 92, it looks like a Q-tip. Explain to the jury how you use State's Exhibit 92 to process for DNA.
So first things first, once I have labeled the package the way I want it to be for whichever piece of evidence that I'm processing, I open with the package up wearing double latex gloves. I pull the Q-tip out. I put on some sterilized water from a sterile tube. I put it on the tip of the Q-tip, and I process whatever I want to process. In this case here, it was clean areas on the tire that seemed out of place for a dirty tire.
And State's Exhibit 92 is going to be from the inside of the tire, which is going to be the part of the metal that's facing the jury right now.
Yes.
And so you essentially take a I'll just turn it around like this because we have a what it's referred to as the valve stem. Was that an area that you thought maybe someone had touched?
Yes, the valve stem cover, the cap itself. If anybody's filled up a tire.
Ask you about the processing of the vehicle is one of the things that you looked for on the victim's Volkswagen Atlas, that there was a potential tracking device on that vehicle.
Yes, sir.
And how did you go about searching for a tracking device?
So first things first, I took our tablet that we use for the Oscar device, as well as for our laser mapping. I turned on the Wi-Fi signal to see if there's anything.
Here's another interesting turn in the testimony. Investigators weren't only looking for biological evidence. They also searched the victim's vehicle for a possible tracking device. Officer Garman explains that he checked for signals using Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and a scanning application designed to detect possible trackers. He specifically mentions looking for something similar to an Apple AirTag. According to his testimony, he did not find a tracker on the vehicle. However, he confirms that an Apple AirTag was located on the victim's keys. Those are 2 separate facts, and it's important not to automatically treat them as the same thing. This is exactly why courtroom testimony has to be examined carefully. A witness can confirm that an item existed without establishing, by that statement alone, who placed it there, why it was there, or what significance it ultimately has to the murder investigation. So here's the question for viewers. Does the presence of a tracking-related device on the keys raise questions for you, or do you think the testimony so far doesn't establish enough to draw a conclusion? Let us know what you think. But remember, the evidence still has to be connected and interpreted as a whole.
Anything that was pinging towards the Wi-Fi. I also turn on the Bluetooth to see if there's anything like an Apple AirTag, anything of that nature that will give off a signal. I then also downloaded a tracker app, for a scanner app, that will actually detect possible trackers.
And were there any trackers that were placed on the vehicle?
No, sir, not that I was able to find.
And was there an Apple AirTag that was on the victim's keys?
There was, yes.
And well, that's okay, I already asked that. That's, Ms. Stifler, anything else? That's all the questions I have here.
All right, thank you. Cross-examination.
Did you need the pictures, Mr. Dresser?
Thank you for offering. I don't think so. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm good, sir.
Thanks for being here.
Yes, sir.
So just real simply put, you spent a lot of time collecting evidence in this case. Is that?
Yes, sir.
And you did so carefully?
Yes, sir.
And you did so that you could help all of the officers in your department, including the detectives, figure out who committed this murder, correct?
Yes, sir.
So the idea when you collect DNA is that you do it carefully.
Yes, sir.
And you do it in places where you can hope to connect that piece of evidence to a particular person.
Yes, sir.
So that later, and in this case, the jury may be able to hear that somebody's DNA was found on that tire.
Yes, sir.
And that somebody may be connected to all the other evidence that you collected.
Yes, sir.
That's the whole idea, right?
Yes, sir.
And this is where the defense, or opposing counsel, is reinforcing the central purpose of the forensic collection. Notice how straightforward the questions become. Was the evidence collected carefully? Was DNA collected from places where it could potentially connect an individual to the evidence? Could that DNA later be compared with other evidence? The officer agrees with those basic propositions. But there's an important distinction viewers should remember. Collecting evidence that could potentially connect someone to a crime is not the same as proving that connection. The actual significance depends on what the laboratory results show and how those results fit with everything else presented in court. That is a recurring theme in forensic cases. One piece of evidence rarely exists in isolation. Investigators may have photographs, physical objects, DNA, vehicle evidence, witness testimony, digital information, and other investigative findings. The jury's job is ultimately to consider the evidence presented under the legal standards that apply to the case. So after hearing this testimony, ask yourself, did Officer Garman establish a careful process for collecting the physical evidence? And more importantly, what will the later forensic evidence say about those samples? That's where this testimony could become much more significant.
You did that with all of your training and experience to make sure that the detectives in this case could solve this crime.
Yes, sir.
I don't have any further questions for you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dreiser. Any follow-up? All right, may the witness be excused.
The witness is excused for now, subject to recall.
All right, officer, do you know what that means?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you, sir. You can step down, stay in touch with the attorney.
So, what did we actually learn from this testimony? Officer Shane Garman provided the jury with a detailed explanation of his role as a crime scene investigator and evidence technician. He described his law enforcement experience, his training, and the procedures he uses to document and preserve physical evidence. In this case, that included photographs and video of the roadway and victim's vehicle, a spent projectile, a tire, apparent blood evidence, and other items documented at the scene. He also explained how the tire was processed for potential DNA evidence, including precautions intended to reduce cross-contamination. Investigators additionally searched the victim's vehicle for possible tracking devices and, according to his testimony, did not locate a tracker on the vehicle, although an Apple AirTag was found on the victim's keys. But remember, This witness was primarily establishing the collection and preservation of evidence. His testimony alone does not tell the jury who committed the murder. The significance of the evidence depends on later testing and how it connects, or fails to connect, with the other evidence in the case. The bigger takeaway is that courtroom investigations are often built one piece at a time. A photograph, a swab, a tire, a projectile, or a digital clue may seem insignificant on its own. But when evidence is properly documented and analyzed, those pieces can become part of a much larger picture. And now we have to ask, what will the forensic testing ultimately reveal, and how will that evidence fit into the prosecution's overall case? If you found this case as shocking as we did, make sure to hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more jaw-dropping courtroom breakdowns.